Thegran ballroom shimmered under the glow of massive crystal chandeliers. Gold accents lined the walls, white roses draped every table, and a live orchestra played soft, romantic music as guests arrived. It was the most talked-about wedding of the year, the union of two powerful families, and everyone wanted to be seen here. The air buzzed with excitement, designer perfumes mingling with the scent of fresh flowers, and the constant click of expensive high heels on marble floors. But away from the noise and glitter, in a quiet corner near the large glass windows, sat a young girl in a wheelchair. She wore a beautiful champagne-colored gown that matched the wedding's theme, her long hair perfectly styled, a delicate silver necklace resting at her collarbone. Anyone looking at her from afar would think she was just another guest, but if you looked closely, her smile was faint, almost forced. She was the CEO's daughter. At only 18, her life had already been shaped by tragedy. A car accident 2 years ago had left her paralyzed from the waist down, changing everything overnight. She was smart, kind, and still stunningly beautiful. But in moments like this, surrounded by hundreds of people, she often felt invisible. As waiters passed by with trays of champagne and orbs Thames, she sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She could see the bride, her cousin, laughing with friends, being pulled from one photo to another. She didn't blame her. It was her special day. But still, she wished anyone, would notice her. People walked past her table without making eye contact. A few glanced at her, then quickly looked away, as if unsure what to say. Some whispered to each other, but no one approached. She tried to distract herself by watching the dance floor, but the music and laughter only made her feel more alone. That's when the ballroom doors opened again. A tall man in a simple dark suit walked in, holding the hand of a boy who looked about 8 years old. He wasn't dressed like the other wealthy guests, no expensive watch, no flashy shoes, but there was something warm in his presence. He was a single dad, invited because he had once helped the CEO with a critical business deal. As they entered, the man's eyes scanned the room. He greeted a few people politely but didn't linger. Then his gaze landed on the girl in the wheelchair. He noticed the way she sat slightly apart from everyone, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. And just like that, something in him shifted. He leaned down to whisper something to his son, who looked over and smiled. Together, they walked straight toward her table. When they reached her, the man gave a warm, genuine smile. "Hi there," he said, his voice calm and friendly. "Mind if we sit here for a bit? Looks like the best spot in the room." The girl blinked, caught off guard. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then, almost shyly, she nodded. He pulled up a chair for himself, and his son slid into the seat beside him. The little boy introduced himself, talking about how big the room was and how he couldn't wait to try the cake. The girl laughed softly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a little. While the rest of the wedding carried on in glitter and noise. Something different began at that small table, a quiet conversation that would soon change the entire night. The girl found herself smiling more as the minutes passed. The single dad, whose name was Daniel, had a warm, unhurried way of talking, like he truly cared about what she had to say. His son, Ethan, was full of questions about her favorite books, her favorite color, whether she liked chocolate cake or vanilla. It wasn't the typical small talk she was used to. They weren't trying to fill the silence. They were trying to know her. For the first time that evening, she felt like she was part of the celebration, not just a decoration in the background. She shared that she loved photography, that she used to take dance classes before the accident, and that her favorite song was actually playing right now. Ethan's eyes lit up, Then you should be out there dancing, he said excitedly. Asterisk, she glanced toward the dance floor, then looked back at her wheelchair. I can't dance anymore, she said softly. Her voice carried a mix of acceptance and a lingering ache. Asterisk Daniel leaned forward, his smile gentle but determined. Who says you can't? He asked. Dancing isn't just about standing on 2 feet, it's about moving with the music and enjoying the moment. Asterisk, before she could respond, Daniel stood and positioned himself behind her wheelchair. Come on, he said playfully. Let's show them how it's done. Ethan jumped up, clapping his hands. The girl's heart pounded, part nerves, part excitement. As she nodded, asterisk Daniel wheeled her gently toward the center of the dance floor. At first, people didn't notice. But as the music swelled, he began to move her chair in smooth, graceful circles, swaying with the rhythm. Ethan danced alongside them, adding his own goofy spins that made her laugh out loud. Asterisk slowly, heads turned. Guests began to pause their conversations. The bride stopped mid-sentence and smiled, her eyes glistening. The music seemed to wrap around them like a warm blanket, and for those few minutes, the girl forgot about being in a wheelchair. She was just dancing. Asterisk Daniel's movements were careful but full of energy, matching the beat. He twirled her chair, dipped it slightly, and even managed a playful spin that made her throw her head back in laughter. It wasn't pity, it wasn't charity. It was pure, shared joy. Asterisk, when the song ended, the room erupted in applause. The girl's cheeks were flushed, and her eyes sparkled brighter than the chandeliers. She could see her father, the CEO, standing at the edge of the dance floor. His usually stern face was softened by tears. Asterisk, as Daniel wheeled her back to her table, the CEO approached. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I've never seen her this happy since before the accident. Daniel simply smiled and replied, she just needed someone to remember she's still the life of the party. Asterisk, the rest of the night was different. People who had ignored her earlier now came over to talk, to compliment her smile, to invite her for pictures. But she knew the real change hadn't come from them. It had come from that moment on the dance floor, from someone who chose to see her when no one else did. Asterisk, when the evening came to a close, Daniel and Ethan said their goodbyes. Thanks for letting us crash your table, Daniel said. She laughed. Thanks for giving me the best dance of my life. Asterisk, as they walked away, she realized something. It wasn't just about being noticed. It was about being valued, being treated as an equal. And all it took was one single dad who refused to walk past and stay silent. Asterisk, that night, the wedding wasn't just remembered for its luxury or beauty. It was remembered for a dance that reminded everyone in the room of something far more important: kindness, courage, and the power of truly seeing someone.